Good morning. My name is William Michael Forbes. I want to welcome you to my morning message. Today, a funny event happened where I was walking down the street, just enjoying a walk with our dog, and this wave of anxiety came over me. It was like really intense, and I'm going, wow, like what's going on here? And a voice in my head said, the world needs to know how to release their anxiety. And I asked, who is this? Who's communicating with me? And the words that came back to me were General George Patton. And again, I know a little bit about General George Patton from what I remember from history books when I was a child, a little bit. He was a famous general in World War II. There was very controversial general. And I said, I asked them, well, what do you have to say about anxiety? And he said to me, wars are won by the fearless. And I said, what do you mean wars are won by the fearless? He said, wars, you use artillery and military and planes and bombs. You can use all of those things. But ultimately, every war was always won by the side that had the least amount of fear. And I asked him, I said, well, if that's the case, what does that have to do with anxiety? And he said, anxiety is fear. And most humans don't know how to face their fear. And I said, well, why do we have to have wars then? And he said, because people need to face their fear. They need to not be governed by it anymore. War is a product of humanity's incapability of dealing with its fear head on, individually. Not just as a collective, but as individuals. Each of us must learn how to deal with fear. And there's a very simple, straightforward way to do that, he said. And I said, can you explain that to me? And he said, yes. He said, very simply, to deal with intense anxiety, to really begin to recognize that it has no power over you. You have all the power over it, is to actually sit still with it. Be with it. Be in charge of it. Do not let it overwhelm you. Be aware that it's there, but do not let it determine what you will do with your body, what you will think in your mind, or what emotions you'll allow to unfold from it. He said, many emotions come to unfold from anxiety. He said, running is a very powerful emotion that comes from people that don't know how to face and manage their anxiety. They tend to run or they'll attack. He said, and we relied on that in the wars. We relied on our team being able to go into anger and rage connected to the anxiety, the fear that they felt, and converting it into rage. And then we would launch assaults against our enemies. And we would rely on our enemies' inability to manage their anxiety and operate on the opposite spectrum by running or fleeing in the face of their anxiety, which would be triggered by the movement of our troops towards theirs. And he said this works on the individual scale as equally as it does on a battlefield, which to me was like pretty profound. And I kind of honestly, I've got lots of experience in that area myself personally. And I want to share that when I went through my childhood, there was a lot of things that created intense anxiety in my life. And that resulted in me being out of control and involved in crime and drugs and alcohol. And I was run by my emotions. I wasn't running, they were running me. And so in view of what he said, sitting with our emotions is really, really powerful. He said it's not that hard once you get to the understanding that the feelings aren't who you are. The feelings are the source of power that you have to utilize to take action. They're not meant to overwhelm you. They're meant to be utilized, harnessed, and then utilized to take action in our lives. And he said that differs from situations and circumstances, from person to person, from country to country, from nation to nation. It differs in terms of how we harness emotions like anxiety. He's saying to me right now, learning how to be in charge of your emotions is the key to freedom. Being in charge of your own emotions and recognizing that they do not run you is the key to personal freedom. He says there's a very simple way that he himself learned to manage his anxiety when he was very young. And he said when he was very young, you did not speak back to elders. You got ruthlessly treated if you spoke back to anybody. that was of an elder consciousness, because they then were considered to be wiser than you because of the fact that they existed longer and had more experience. So you were, he says, he's using the word religiously, you were religiously forced to submit to the information and ideas of older people. He said that had benefits and detriments. He said in his case, the benefits were it taught him that even though he feared them, the way he was disciplined was in such a fashion as to be more organized and more effective. So his environment was kept clean and neat. He became very regimented in his thinking. So there's nothing outside of what he was trained to think or feel that could interfere with what process he was involved in, what he was learning. He said he had to submit to those that knew more, and there were issues in his childhood that he had to deal with, he says. But he said, ultimately, I learned to not be governed by my emotions and even no longer by the emotions of others. He said when he transitioned from between ages 14 and 18, he made a huge transition in mastering his emotions. He became fearless. Even in the schoolyard, he was fearless. In terms, he would not allow anything, even if the people were bigger than him or stronger than him, he did not allow his feelings to stop him from taking whatever action he needed to feel empowered. He says, we do not need conflict as a species anymore. We do not need conflict. Military conflict is not necessary in this point in humanity's evolution, deliberate creating process. It's not necessary in order to manage, evolve, and transform our species to a higher expression of self, where the types of conflicts that we've had historically are no longer necessary. He says, but this must first happen in the mindsets of your leadership, where your leadership themselves must learn to not allow their choices to be governed by their fears or their needs. That is what is causing most of the difficulties in your social structures, is the fear that is governing and pervading the minds of your leadership. He's saying also that this combines with need too, that there are needs that people get lost in and satisfy their needs at the expense of what is reasonable to do. A lot of leaders in your world today are doing things from the perspective of need rather than the perspective of what's actually practically required for people in general. And this amounts to greed. Need amounts to greed, is what he's saying. Need amounts to greed. So I just want to ask, what then is the best way for anybody watching this to begin to circumvent or no longer be governed by their anxiety? What would you recommend as an actual practical thing? He's saying right now, you have to sit. When you are aware of your anxiety, you must sit down or stand, but be aware of it. Be aware that it is not who you are, but it is an instrument of energy that is at your disposal, but you must not submit to its actions. If that fear inclines you to attack somebody, you must not attack. If that fear inclines you to give up, you must not give up. You must not let the anxiety that you experience be the leader of your actions. You must operate as the commander of this emotional energy, and you must train that energy as if it were a soldier to do your bidding. In other words, if you find yourself wanting to accomplish a specific thing, but this thing you wish to accomplish is triggering anxiety for you, you must not allow that anxiety to prevent you from taking the actions you need. You must move through them. Eventually, those emotions will begin to work on your behalf rather than you feeling subjugated to them and bound to them. They are your substance for creating. You must become the commander of your anxiety. Recognize that you may call it anxiety now, but when you train it, when you are no longer subjective to it, it now becomes a powerful resource for you to be independently creative of that energy, but utilizing it to be action-oriented in a positive way. He's saying this can be very hard. He says, I cannot tell you how many times, even higher level officers who would flee from command centers because their fear governed them. You will find when you begin to challenge your anxiety that it will rise up. It will seem to become bigger and stronger than you, and you must remember that that is not who you are. It has no power over you. You must sit like a breakwall in the ocean and allow that energy to come at you, but do not submit to it. Do not let your body move by it. Do not let your thoughts be governed by it. Just stay resolute. But many I have watched flee in the face of these emotional energies that you call anxiety. Wars were won by the fearless. Your success, your failure, is dependent on your ability to no longer be determined in terms of actions. What you will say or what you will do must not be determined by the emotions you perceive, but rather you must utilize your desired, he's saying, outcome, your desired outcome, your envisionment, your dream, your goal. That must be your focus. When you can push towards the focus of what you really want, regardless of the anxiety, you will become the master and commander of your emotions. Your emotions will then become a useful resource for you rather than being experienced as a commander over you. But whenever those emotions are there, he's stressing right now, do not submit to your anxiety. Relax, be present, stay focused. It is not your commander. War, success, and failure are all effects of one who submits to anxiety or one who refuses to be subjective to it. This you must understand. Many of you listening have the benefit of being in a time in your creative process as humans where you are no longer subjective to the old paradigm of fight and flight. The information and knowledge available to you was not available on the scale that it was when I walked this earth, when I fought wars which are very barbaric and primitive and unnecessary. In the wake of my life, when I look back on what occurred, much could have been executed very differently if the leadership understood, if people understood that their fears must not be allowed to govern their actions, that concepts like unity and improved quality of living for all must be endeared by leadership, that certain governors and beliefs in regards to fundamental philosophies about what is true or what is not true. I found much religious dogma was a cornerstone of much violence even then. Even now we see this still occurring in your realm. But for the sake of today, let us just give you this one little piece to work with. When you recognize your anxiety, you must train your army, which is your body and your mind. You must train your soldier. You must train it to be still, to be quiet, and to be at peace as you remain still. Do not allow your body to be moved by that anxiety. Do not allow your thoughts to be moved by that anxiety. You can use your presence of being in the moment. You can use your breath. Command your body to be still. Command your mind to be quiet in the face of that anxiety. And lo and behold, in a short time, you will recognize that that anxiety no longer has power over you unless you choose to submit to it. And all great things, all horrible things that have happened in the human experience are an effect of either submitting to that anxiety in fear or aggression. You must submit to neither, for there is a higher path that you can engage in that does not require that you fight or run, but that you join forces with each other and liberate humanity from the chains of the past. He's saying, this is all I have to say right now. It's a fascinating thing. Thank you. He's saying he doesn't have much time for involving himself in humanity. There are too many, he's saying there are too many delightful things that he's learned since he left physical form. He said the biggest challenge that you face today is realizing that you are the commander of your energy, not the servant of it. That all your actions will proceed from the emotional energy that you choose to submit to or utilize. He's saying choose your battles very carefully. The only battle you should be choosing to engage in is the battle of achieving your dreams and your goals, of ennobling your life, of making your life the best life you can, and simultaneously extending that to others, support others in their being their best. But you must first win the war within yourself. Your anxiety is just an energy that is untamed by most of you. Thank you. Wow. So I'm going to, again, they told me that I'd be bringing in more information, and so we'll see what comes next. But I want to thank Commander, I'm going to call him Commander Patton because that's what comes to my mind, for taking the time to come to me on my walk with the dog today and sharing this information with us. And I can honestly say from my own experience, what he said is absolutely true. Getting to that place where we are no longer subjective to our emotions, where we're no longer bound by the pains of our past, rebooting our memories, rebooting our suffering, and replaying it again and again and again is what humanity has done for thousands and thousands of years. It's time to stop. We don't need to do this anymore. Creation does not have to be a terrible thing. Creation can be a really dynamic and incredible process for all of humanity, regardless of our cultural and social and political and religious ideologies that are just simply ideas that other people have created. Each of us humans as individuals have within us this infinite intelligence that's beating our hearts right now, digesting our food and circulating our blood. And it says we can do anything that we choose to. Do no harm is ultimately what I get from it all the time, is do no harm, operate from love. You can learn too. Like I said, I run a series of courses and classes, and we teach people how to, in meditation, we teach meditation in our level 2 part of our program, where you learn to actually do exactly as he suggested, to sit in the face of certain emotions and to learn how to let them go and transform them. Remember, emotion, whether it's fear or joy, is just energy, emotional energy, as either fear or joy, but it's still just energy. And energy can't be created nor destroyed. It can only be changed from one state to another. Fear can be changed to love. Love can be changed to fear. They are interchangeable once you understand how to redirect your focus and attention. And we teach all of that. If you want to know more about the courses and classes that we hold, which start in February, you can go to my website, williammichaelforbes.com, and read about the courses and get all the information and register if you choose. But please, do not let your anxiety govern you. Do not let it be your master. Let it become your servant. Train it. Train your anxiety to serve you. And I know for me, just sitting, I used to sit for hours with my fear and anxiety until it calmed down, until it was no longer trying to make my body do this. Oh, I better call this, I better do this thing. I had to train my body, and I had to train my mind to no longer be governed by those energies, but I learned to alter them so that they work for me instead of against me. And all of us have to do that at some point in our process, whether it's in this lifetime or the next. Remember, the body is not who you are. It's just an instrument that you're using to communicate here, right? It's just an instrument of your divine expression. I want to say thank you for stopping by and listening to this morning message. I want to wish you a wonderful and joyful day. If you've got any questions or comments, please leave them in the section below. You can get to my website through the links below. You can also join our 1 billion strong movement, where we're working at actively putting people together deliberately and intentionally to alter the planetary electrical conditions that are happening right now, to not go through what they call a pole shift or reset. We are emotionally connected to all that is. We are all connected to each other. We are connected to this planet. We live in an unbroken continuity of consciousness. It has no time, space, ending, or beginning. It just is. And you can join our 1 billion strong movement group on Facebook. The link for that is below as well. And I encourage you to join us and get involved in the short 30 to 60 second meditations we do twice a day, each in our own way, to begin to restore love as the dominant vibrational paradigm on this planet. Again, thank you very much for coming out today. Much love to all of you. Bye for now.